Um, So the next item on the agenda is, I have a couple proclamations. The first proclamation is in recognition of April as National Poetry Month. And it's a relatively short proclamation, so I'll just read it. Whereas the Academy of American Poets established the month of April as National Poetry Month in 1966, and whereas National Poetry Month seeks to highlight the extraordinary legacy and ongoing achievement of American poets, introduce Americans to the pleasures and benefits of reading poetry, bring poets and poetry to the public in immediate and innovative ways, make poetry an important part of our children's education. And whereas as National Poetry Month, under the leadership and direction of the Academy of American Poets, is now the largest literary celebration in the world. And whereas poetry enhances and enriches the lives of all Americans, and whereas poetry is an essential part of the arts and humanities, affects every aspect of life in America today, including education, the economy, the community pride and development. And whereas poetry has produced some of the nation's leading creative artists and has inspired other artists in fields such as music, theater, film, dance, and the visual arts. And now therefore, as mayor of the town of Atherton, and on behalf of the Atherton City Council, I proclaim April 1st through April 30th as National Poetry Month. And all poets are welcome.
Can you recite a poem for us?
No, but I could delegate.
I think that I shall never see.
A poem
Etc.
lovely as a tree.
I know the whole thing.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, come
Third
on.
grade.
Third grade. I love it. That was the one that was going through my head too.
Okay. Never got a response from you on the next one.
The chief can actually provide a response, the one you provided me last.
Good evening to you.
I can't provide you background on the police officer's proclamation and those things that you see back. As a new procedure with the Department of Justice, whereas family members who have fallen officers that are not.
Okay.
Statewide.
And you will see what the chief is referring to when I get to the last whereas in this proclamation. In recognition in recognition memory in honor of all National Police Week, that reads odd. The point here is that May 11th to 17th is National Police Week, and this is a proclamation honoring everyone who serves in this country in our various police forces, and particularly recognizing those who have fallen in the last year. And this is the proclamation. Whereas a candlelight vigil is traditionally held on May 13th, the National Peace Officers Memorial Day service is hosted by the Fraternal Order of the Police and the Fraternal Order of the Police Auxiliary. And whereas the Town Council and the community of Atherton would like to honor the men and women of law enforcement for their never-ending commitment to the protection of life and property. And whereas the Town Council would like to honor those 10 fallen officers in California who lost their lives in the line of duty in 1921. And they are Deputy Adam Gibson, Sergeant Richard P. Brown, Deputy Thomas Albanese, Officer Jose Anzora, Detective Luca Benedetti, Officer Jimmy Inn, Sergeant Dominic Vaca, Deputy Philip Campas, Officer Hamander Gruwal, Detective Armando Cantu, and recognize 8 who have fallen in the past. And they are Deputy William Johnson, 1852, Marshal Rudolph Bond, 1886, Deputy Daniel Todd, 1910, Constable Warren Willard, 1912, Deputy Guillermo Buet, 1913, Deputy Constable Leroy Tripp, 1916, Marshal James West, 1925, and Officer Harry Thompson, 1935. And it's those folks, those 8 folks that the chief referred to. And now therefore, as mayor of the town of Atherton, on behalf of the Atherton Town Council, I hereby proclaim the week of May 11th, 2022 to be recognized as National Police Week and remember those officers who paid the ultimate sacrifice with their lives while serving and protecting the citizens of this great state of California.
Very nice.
Okay, and the next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, I believe public comments is first.
Oh, public comment, sorry. Are there any public comments tonight? I don't see any public comments in the room and I don't see any public comments online. Okay. Now we can go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the city council. You have the written report as part of your agenda packet this evening. During my one-on-ones, I was able to answer a few questions regarding the city manager's report and the various reports that included in that report. But staff's here tonight to answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions or comments?
Would just like to note, I think there's something in there about Earth Day coming up on Saturday. If you're, yeah, there's a huge event in Hobart Palmer Park this weekend. And one of our council members has been working very hard on it. I don't know if that council member would like to provide a pitch for it at this point in time as part of the city manager's report.
I expect everyone to be there. We're all coming.
Speak up, Diana.
Just tell them what you were gonna do.
Yeah.
We
Do a little-
have a lot, we have electric vehicles, we have electric bikes. We have a kids zone that has potting stations and a bug museum. And the library is going to have story time and 3D printers and virtual reality. In the pavilion, we have an art exhibit of student artworks, and a famous environmental artist is going to do really large installations outside on the building as well as inside. And we have a lineup of very impressive speakers. The mayor will be the moderator. And we are going to, at 12 noon, we're going to have leaf blower bowling competition where each of us on the council will be competing in leaf blower bowling.
What's
So
the award?
we're still working on that.
Okay.
Still working on that. But we hope everybody will come. So
And Councilmember Hawkins Manuelian stated that there are going to be electric vehicles there, but these are representative electric vehicles, as everybody knows. As automobile manufacturers begin really an enormous transition from combustion engines to electric vehicles, there's a whole lot of new cars coming out. And there are going to be some cars at this event that I know I have never seen, a Lucid, a Polestar. I've seen that, but not many people have. And there are a few other electric vehicles that are new vehicles that are coming out that'll be really interesting to look at. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes items 6 through 11. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Anyone on the council wish to pull anything?
I have a comment on number 10.
Comments would be fine. On number 10?
Yep.
Okay, let me see if anyone from the public wishes to pull any item from the consent calendar. Okay, I don't see anyone. You give your comment though.
Yeah, last year I brought this up, and so I'll bring it up one more time. Our side of Laurel is in very bad shape, and I would hope that in the coming year it will get fixed. You know, some of the other roads, I've walked those roads and looked at the types of cracks and the number of cracks that they have, and Laurel far exceeds that. And so I would hope that you know, staff can go out and check that out and put that on the list for no later than next year at this time, and you know, and hopefully coordinate with Menlo Park. So when we are doing it, last time Menlo Park did their half of the street and we didn't do anything. So hopefully this time we can get Menlo Park to work with us and we can get the whole street shut down at once and get that fixed. And it's primarily from the Glenwood intersection all the way through to Encinal, which is heavily used by school traffic. Thank you.
And that item 10 was the annual road work that the town does, doing slurries and road repairs on the surface of the roads, which is why that comment was appropriate. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the
So
consent?
moved.
calendar?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving on. That is unanimously passed. And we're moving on to item number 11.
Item number
Or number 12,
Twelve.
sorry.
12. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Item number 12 is introduction of the municipal code amendment establishing regulations for historic building preservation under chapter 8.15 of the Atherton Municipal Code. We have staff on the line, but I'll give a brief introduction to this item. The draft historic building preservation ordinance provides the regulatory framework for historic building designation, preservation, and enforcement to include provisions for historic property contracts, also known as Mills Act agreements. Per council prior direction, staff removed the inclusion of the historic artifact provisions. Those remain as they are in the current code. Minor amendments noted by council at the last meeting have been incorporated into the ordinance before you tonight. The ordinance is ready for introduction and first reading. It's recommended that the council open the public hearing, conduct the public hearing, and introduce the ordinance. Staff's present to answer any specific questions the council may have. And one note you may have noticed in the almanac today, I think it was, there's an article about the Frank Lloyd Wright House being up for sale. As part of that article, it talks about the requirements of that property owner to maintain that property as a historic structure. So anyway, Lisa's on the Zoom meeting if you have any specific questions of staff.
Okay, so does this require a formal opening of a public hearing?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we will formally open the public hearing on this matter. Is there any questions anyone from the council has? Yes.
I just have a question, following up on what city managers was saying about the article about the Frank Lloyd Wright House. I would ask our city planner if in fact that house is protected under this ordinance as it's written.
I believe the city manager also did some research under the
Muted.
designation of the property.
Muted.
We can't hear you, Lisa. I don't think you're muted. I think it's something to do with our Zoom settings here. Anthony, if you could check that out. One moment.
That's pulling me back.
Audio settings.
They'd have to.
Can you, and then
We're on the recording.
it's the tech. We got to work out the tech.
Yeah, we're
All right, are we caught up? Lisa, can you speak now? See if we can hear you.
I was referring to George and Mona, could maybe respond to that question.
great. We can hear you now.
What was this?
So it is whether the Frank Lloyd Wright property, it's presently designated as historic on the state register. So because it's on the state register, I'm assuming it would also be automatically on the local register as well, or protected under state law.
Okay. Thank you.
Would they have to apply for the Mills Act then?
Yes, they would.
No, but that, I guess that's one of my questions is does the new owner have?
Mona?
Can I speak?
Okay, so to answer that question, this ordinance does not go into effect until 30 days after the second reading. So all of the new aspects of this ordinance, including, for example, the Mills Act component and contract, are not effective until we do our second reading, wait 30 days. There's no challenge of the ordinance. It goes into effect. Property owners may apply at that time.
Okay. What if the property owners do not apply for a Mills Act? Will the property not be protected?
Not necessarily. So the Mills Act portion only provides tax relief.
Right.
The designation of the historic feature is done either at the federal level, state level, or local level. And the significance of that is when there is a designation, either local or state, we have to follow the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines for preservation.
Mhm.
And there's recommendations and there's prohibitions on maintenance and upkeep and repairs of the property.
Okay. I guess my point is, and my concern is that whoever buys the home, I want to make sure that it's protected, whether or not they apply for a Mills Act.
So and I'm not familiar with the specific facts, but if this house has already been designated as a historic structure
Mhm.
and is on the state's list, then that protection will inure to the benefit or detriment of the future property owner.
Okay, thank you. So-
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no questions, is there any public comment on this matter? I don't see any public comment in the room. I don't see any public comment online. Okay, comments from members of the council. Motion?
I'd like to move that we move forward with the Mills Act ordinance without further reading of the ordinance.
I'll second the motion. Councilmember, Vice Mayor Whitmer.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve the introduction of the municipal code amendment establishing regulations for historic building preservation under chapter 815 of the Atherton Municipal Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimously approved. And I will now close the public hearing. Okay, the next item on the agenda, item 13, is to approve a services agreement with Brightview Landscape Services for landscape maintenance services in the town center and at Hobo Palmer Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the council is aware, the town issued an RFP for landscape maintenance services for the park and the new town center. The town received 4 responses to the RFP, including a response from our current service provider, MCE. After review of the proposals, our current staff interviewed the top 2 firms to get a better understanding of the scope of services, their operations, and their approach. Following the interviews, staff recommends that the council approve a services agreement with Brightview Landscape Services for landscape services at town facilities. During my one-on-one meetings with the council, there were a couple of questions related to the cost for services as they stood prior to and the proposed new provider. Currently, pre-construction, the cost model for MCE resulted in an estimated cost for the park and town center at about $264,000. The recommended service provider cost for year 1 is about $238,000. The library is responsible for 50 to 60% of the town center's portion of costs for landscaping. And those are shown in detail in the table in the staff report. It's important to note that with the changeover, it's not going to be a straight budget to budget adjustment or savings, because we'll be retaining some MCE services at the park with respect to the buildings and the interior of those buildings and set up and takedown of events and things like that, as well as here in the town center. And we are also reallocating some of their hours and services to streets and drainage. But staff's present here this evening to answer any specific questions the council may have with respect to these proposals.
Questions from anyone on the council? Elizabeth?
Well, I just have a question about the estimates on page 3 of the staff report for the Civic Center on an annual basis. Am I reading this correctly? It'd be $21,000 or $22,000, 800 a year, 23,000 a year? Is that a year? Annual?
These are annual costs.
for the Civic Center?
Yes, for the Civic Center. I mean, the cost differential is really because the landscaping is brand new and the irrigation system is brand new. And so the estimated cost of maintaining the system and maintaining the area is a little
Minimal?
lower. And so the cost is 24,000, a little over 24,000, including trash pickup and a few
Right.
other things.
I guess so that was my question and you answered it. I have a
Okay.
comment about it.
Well, let's do questions. Yes.
I have a question. Will they be using best practices in terms of pesticides and all of the things that are recommended that we're banning?
Yes, they are complying with the ban on glyphosates.
Yeah,
As well as, sorry, it's.
Yeah.
You
sometimes
pulled
I
that
mess up
out.
That word. So that they also are planning to use electric leaf blowers to the maximum degree as possible. And in our interview with Brightview, they elaborated on their environmental practices and we're impressed with their stewardship efforts. And as noted in the staff report, Brightview is also looking forward to participating in some town events such as our Arbor Day and Earth Day going forward.
Other questions? I have a question. So the cost request about the comparison with this change wasn't, I couldn't assess whether there's a net savings or a net expense because the numbers sort of move all over. And I understand that this is going to be taken advantage of by staff to move some MCE resources onto the roads, which will improve our road management effort and cost. But so that's an expense that we're taking on, but looking just apples to apples in terms of landscape services, it sounds to me from my review of the contract that this is a very focused landscape contract, which we really haven't had from MCE because they're not principally a landscape services company. And so we are getting increased focus on landscape services, and I would assume quality of landscape services because of that, and that the cost is almost the same. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if there's any public comment on this matter. Is there any public comment either from anyone in the room or anyone online? If anyone online wishes to make a public comment, you can click on the reactions button on the bottom of your page and raise your hand. I don't see any comments. Okay, comments from the council.
So
Elizabeth.
my comment about the estimated costs that it's outlined on page 3 of the staff report is that that's less than $2,000 a month. And I don't know. I pay almost that much for my property, you know, and it's hard for me to think that, you know, they're gonna do all of this and keep it up really well. And there's a lot of little plants that have just been planted. And I guess this doesn't include like mulching or, you know, other kind of materials that they would bring in that would be over and above, right? If they had to do fresh.
Well, in
Ground
the
dressing.
RFP, we outlined the services that we are requesting, and that includes tending to the plants, the irrigation system,
Yeah,
mulching, and for example, if we had turf, it would include
yeah.
aeration and fertilization. So all of that stuff, as appropriate, is included in that base cost.
Okay.
Do we have any service from the landscape firm that is doing the landscape in the town center? Is there any warranty for the first year or anything like that?
So what we have with them is a approximately 3-month maintenance period for the landscaping to make sure that it gets established. And then it transitions over to us.
So there's 3 months that we're not,
Okay, that's in year one. Anyway, I just find it a low number,
It's.
which is, I
It's a
guess,
work in
good.
progress because it's new landscaping here. I think the biggest cost is certainly going to be in the park. Where there's going to be a real
which it
serious,
is, because it's-
hopefully,
yeah.
I know the Park and Rec Committee is expecting a very serious focus on the plant material in the park from this new firm. Comments? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, so, obviously, there was a lot of time and money donated to put in the event garden, and the event garden has kind of deteriorated substantially. So I'm really pleased to have a professional group come. I just wonder whether or not when we looked at that, and we were having the city council, we had the foundation had to come to the city council, and we had to approve to accept that location or that donation. We asked the foundation to tell us and make an estimate of how much it was going to cost for them to maintain the trees, because there's all different types of trees that need specialized pruning and things like that. So when I looked at the proposal, I spoke to George about it. I know we have our own arborist. That's fine. That's great. So we need to make sure that on a periodic basis, we have an arborist report saying what we were going to do. MCE was going to do that at one time, and of course, then that kind of fell away. But the number looks a little bit low, but I assume it was competitive with the Frank and Grossman bid. I hope it was, with regards to what they were going to do and everything like that, because Frank and Grossman actually put that in. So I support moving forward with this vendor based on what you've said. I just, I'm cautious with regards to, the park needs a little more sprucing up, especially that event area substantially.
I'm going to add in the staff report is a request for an allowance for staff to work with the contractor for enhancements to the park, to add planting and improve areas that need improvement. So we're asking for some additional authorization in the contract to allow staff to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Just to comment, my recollection of the Brightview proposal is that they do pruning up to 15 feet. So any pruning above that is done by a tree service, not Brightview.
Yeah, we have. West Coast.
And I agree with Bill's particular concern about the event garden. That was an area that we put a good deal of time into. It totally changed as a result of the effort that the foundation did. And it's being so connected to the pavilion is an important area for weddings, for example, but it really has never met its promise. So it'd be great to see it improved.
It's a very high maintenance type of an environment. It's very high maintenance because of the DG that gets rutted and this and all the different plantings that I don't think had adequate irrigation to. And it's just a very high maintenance event garden, environment, right? Yeah. So it needs a lot of special attention.
Any other comments?
Are we going to approve this?
Can I get a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the city's staff recommendation to award the landscaping contract as so designated in the staff report.
Is there a second? Okay, Diana, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimously approved. We'll move on to item number 14, which is to approve the Park and Recreation Outdoor Facilities Policy for Hobo Palmer Park and consideration of the policy for the town center.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Back in 2008, the Park and Recreation Committee created and recommended adoption of a memorial and donation policy for the park. However, that policy was never formally adopted by the city council. The current committee expressed an interest in the draft policy and refreshing the policy for recommendation to the city council. Attached to the staff report is the version of the policy recommended by the committee. However, after review of that policy, I am recommending several modifications to that policy, and you saw them highlighted within the staff report. I'll talk about them briefly now. In broad brush, my recommendation is to remove references, excuse me, to monuments, which are in the first paragraph of the policy. That came from one of my one-on-ones with a member of the council. Remove references to the Park Foundation, as this is a separate nonprofit organization, and the town really should not be dictating how an outside organization manages or accepts or handles their own donations. We shouldn't have it in our policy to do that. Park and Rec does not technically have the ability to accept donations on behalf of the town. They would need to either be accepted by myself or the city council based on levels set by the city council. So I would recommend that this be rephrased to a recommendation and that the limit be reduced to some number that the council feels comfortable with for city manager acceptance of a donation. One suggestion was around $2,500 for a donation. Anything above that then would need to go to the city council. So instead of thinking about it in terms of what's being donated, more in terms of a dollar figure that you feel comfortable with. I would also recommend that this policy only apply to the park. The town center itself will be covered under the town's master use and opportunities plan. So it's not part of the park donation policy. With those recommendations, I believe staff and representatives from the Park and Recreation Committee are present this evening to address any specific questions the council may have.
Great. Any questions? No, I don't see any questions.
George answered
Okay,
them.
let me see if there's any public comment on this matter.
Mr. Mayor, Walt Robinson, I am Park and Rec Committee and a 50-year resident of this town. I've been on the foundation for 25 or 30 years, and I am one of its representatives on the Park and Rec Committee. Let me address, first of all, I'm happy to address actually all four of those issues, but I'm happy to talk about the foundation. This policy since 2008 that was kicking around, I've only been on this now for less than a year, always referred to the foundation. And that's because all donations were made to the foundation. And if it was going to be used for the park, the city then would bill the foundation would pay for it. So this modification was actually designed because the town has now figured out how they can directly accept donations, thanks to the Civic Center having prompted them to do that. So that's how it's referenced. We were never told at Park and Rec there was any problem about having references to the foundation in there. The policy was filled with references to the foundation, many of which we took out. Let me make one suggestion now that our city manager has raised the issue. What I would do is take out the 3 references to the foundation that suggest that there's any sort of directing of funds. I would leave in the reference to the foundation being willing and able to take monetary donations. And I say that because, as you all know, there have been thousands of hours that have been donated by residents of this town to raise money for the foundation, through the foundation, and then have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to beautify this park, to improve it. You referenced the event garden. It's actually quite worse than what you said. We not only did we fund it, but we actually engineered it and we supervised it. And then to watch the maintenance people ruin it is way beyond the pale. So I can point out to you, if I might, what I would leave in the reference. And then if you want to take the rest out, I don't think that it would be a problem. We just simply put it in because everybody thought there might be money that the city didn't want to get, didn't get. On the amount of money, as you can see, giving a tree here is over $3,000. Do you want to put in here a provision that says every time that happens, it goes to the council? I have no problem with George. I mean, we would never accept anything that the staff didn't say was appropriate. In fact, the staff does all the communications and does every bit of the placing of these. So it's not a problem. We were just trying to keep you from having to do that. You put 2 trees out there, or a tree in a park and a bench, you're over $6,000. So that's the reason for that provision in there. So that comment is, I think we could straighten that out very easily. The town center was there only because it was always in the policy. It had the park near the library. And so we thought it would help the town. Frankly, we don't need to take on anything more, but people might want to donate despite your new growth here. Frankly, I would donate a tree to block the block, to block your cinder block house. But anyway, that can happen. So all we're doing is saying that sounds like right down our alley, and be happy to do it. So with those, I think we could fix this up to solve George's problem other than the money, which I think we could add staff to that, and that would clearly take care of the problem. With respect to his other point, with respect to memorials, or, there are a couple memorials there. We thought that ought to be part of Park and Rec. If there are any, you can see we very carefully minimized any use of memorials in that park. And so it would have to be very special, and obviously have to go to the council to do that. So anyway, that's the issue. There was also an issue that was raised, although George didn't mention it, about the cost of a donation. And the reason for that is because Sally Benz has decided not only, and this is in addition to what's said, not said correctly, these donations are not just the cost and the installation and the plaques, if they want them. This is maintenance. Some of these things are 3 and 4 times higher than the actual cost of the item that somebody has to give. You can give a $6,000 bench, and we cost $25,000 to $30,000, $25,000 to $3,000, $2,500 to $3,000. So that's really the way this was all done, and that's the way it's laid out. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We spent, including me, a lot of time going over this, and for some reason, the prior Park and Recs could never quite get it all together and present it to you. So we thought now, when there are trees, there are benches, all recently being donated, that now we need to actually clarify how that is. And again, in the end, I want to say, I want people to know that they can't just donate an individual item, but if they want to give money for a future project, like now we're still developing those on the foundation, that they know they can do that. Not that everything has to go through the town, because it does not. But
So hang on, Walt, questions for Walt?
Yeah, are you specifically referring to the language on the 3rd page of the policy?
The one under monetary donations that reads, I think we're on the same thing, that reads, the Holbrook Palmer Park Foundation, which has developed and funded many improvements to the park, continues to be willing and able to accept monetary donations. That language is what you would like to see
I would
remain.
strike the other language to accommodate George. I don't think it refers anybody to a specific nonprofit. It doesn't say what the nonprofits do, nor does it make this town responsible for anything the foundation does.
That was my question. Go ahead,
You want to
Elizabeth.
keep that language and
Yes,
strike
I do.
everything else.
I do.
So what would you do about the procedure for making a donation in the following paragraphs?
Well, what I
As
would
noted
do,
above, monetary donations, that last sentence of the first paragraph under procedure for making a donation.
yeah, what I would do is on page 2 near the top, 2 of 10, I would take out 3 types of donations, just put 2, because that's what the city's going to be doing. So I would strike monetary donations to fund a specific
So
or
it would be like,
unspecific
take
project.
that out.
As George says, he doesn't think that belongs in there.
That's what I was
And
just
all we
asking.
want to do is have the one reference to the foundation.
Said go to
Everything
page
else
2
will
and
come
do
out.
something.
I think it's the same thing.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah, I
Go to
didn't.
page 2.
I didn't either.
I didn't
If I could
understand.
summarize that, I think what Mr. Robinson was saying was just make donations of gifts and, excuse me, what was the other one? Gifts and donations, 2 types of donations as opposed to 3. Sorry, I can't talk.
It's that.
Monetary donations would be removed
Pizza.
from, it's pizza. Monetary donations would be removed from this policy. and only referenced as part of the foundation's general statement there on page 3.
Okay, so on page 2,
Mhm.
and item number 7, where it's referencing the foundation, that would be
That'd be removed.
deleted.
Right.
And then item number 11, the last sentence of that
Removed.
would be removed.
Or you could just remove by the Holbrook Palmer Foundation, and it would read, any unused money from a donation will be used to fund new and ongoing projects.
That would be struck.
fine.
And in fact, the way it's designed, we're not going to have any
Yeah.
leftovers. We only take the money from our residents for the action.
And if it's a donation that comes into the town, it'll just go to the expense, so in the park, so that works.
Okay, so what about on page 4?
Well, I'm not sure I got page 2.
Okay, and then
Now,
on
page 3, are you pulling the memorial item paragraph completely?
Memorial item paragraph.
Which,
no,
on-
no, the
No.
first yellow highlighted would stay, the second yellow highlighted would be deleted
that's right.
Correct.
under procedure for making donations.
The
That-
procedural highlighted would be removed.
Deleted.
Right. The one above would stay.
Okay, now you can go to page 4, Elizabeth.
Thank you. The criteria for acceptance, the park site plan, the yellow highlighted, in the opinion of the town and or park rec committee, a facility area or the park may be determined to be fully developed and the opportunity for donations would not be available at that site. So city manager is recommending that that be deleted.
I know that
No, no.
would stay, but just amended to include, city council and staff.
Oh,
So his recommendation is that that would read, instead of in the opinion of town and or park and rec, it would be in the opinion of town staff, city council and or park and rec.
got it.
It's fine.
That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Well, there are, just to clarify, there are a number of these where people come and they say, I want to put it over here. And
Yeah.
I want Sally to be able to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that, particularly with the irrigation system.
Right,
And
right, right.
Because we don't want to watch these things die.
But that didn't say where to put it. That said, in the opinion of any of those 3 groups, an area could be excluded from,
Exactly.
which I think that language is fine.
Okay.
There is an issue that as a council we need to address, which has to do with the decision-making and the dollar amount.
Yeah.
The proposal from Park and Rec is
$10,000.
that anything that is less than 10,000 could be decided by Park and Rec. And the city manager's recommendation, as I understand it, is to say anything less than 2,500 would be decided by Park and Rec and the city manager. It would need both approvals.
Well, a recommendation from Park and Rec, approval, acceptance by the city manager,
Right.
but the dollar amount could be set at any level the council deems appropriate.
Well, I'll make a comment on that because I have a comment on that.
I have a question. We're not going to move off of questions first.
Okay, go ahead. I guess we were on public comment, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, ask a question. That's fine.
So I thought we were asking Walt some
Yep,
questions.
you're right. Go.
So Walt, if I could just kind of summarize, because we've talked about a lot of changes. The foundation serves a very important purpose where some people just want to donate to the foundation, both within the town and outside the town, or they might want to make a donation and be anonymous, and only the foundation can do that, where it would be public information if in fact they come over. So that's why you were suggesting that we leave in references to the foundation. Is that not correct?
At least one, right.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Apparently there's a legal issue, which.
Yeah, if somebody gives it to the Park and Rec, then it's the town money and the foundation can't get the town
Exactly.
money.
Exactly. And
Right.
It's not really designed, so people give money for maintenance.
Yeah.
And that's what your job is, in my view.
No, I think your comment with regards to the cost of, say, a tree, having the maintenance included in there, similar to what they did to the foundation with regards to, we want you to understand exactly how much it's going to cost to maintain this thing. That was a very relevant thing, and I appreciate the fact that you put that up. With regards to placement of plaques and things like that, obviously the council doesn't want to have the park to look, first off, we're in the past, we've always been opposed to putting a lot of hardscape in there and little plaques. You know, we don't want the place to look like a cemetery. I realize you're having only flat plaques, but you know, the flat plaques for large items, you know, was there a draw the line on plaques that you were planning on putting in there, or?
Yeah, this has been carefully scripted, actually, and we're going to standardize. We want the same color, we want the same size.
Mhm.
Typically what they are is they are on the back of the bench, facing forward.
Mhm.
Only when you get to a tree, of course, not going to put on the tree. So there's a very small plaque that's there. And indeed, a lot of people are giving these as memorials to their parents who did a lot in the park.
Mhm.
And so it's perfectly scripted that way, but you're exactly right. We don't want them either. And you can see no commercial. It's very carefully drafted, so we won't get anything beyond just the memorial. You can see the words are even
Mhm.
limited.
So would staff be at a minimum also looking at those plaques? Is that what your thought?
Staff?
Yeah, staff.
Town
Yeah.
staff.
Oh, yeah. These are all designed. I mean, Sally does this whole job.
Okay.
All we do is hear what there is, and the town is really in charge of all that, which they should be.
And your thought on having a plaque put in there would be commensurate with your Appendix A, park benches, and then later on, your trees that the tree donations and things like that, which are fairly low, you know, a 15-inch, 15-gallon tree is not exciting, you know, it's not a
Very
big
small.
expense. And I think that did you consider only doing something larger, like 48-inch
Oh, yeah. I
boxes?
mean,
or-
we would prefer to have everything. The problem was MCE could only plant a small one. I mean, my gardener can plant a bigger thing in my yard than the MCE would do. I'm hoping the new people will be able to put in a real, 48-inch is not a giant tree.
Right.
So
So given that we just approved that, would you consider changing those numbers before a plaque is donated out to a larger tree, for example?
you mean to have in the back? to have
Yeah.
a- Be fine with me. It was
Yeah, because the
only-
back is, I read the back as your guiding principles of what you're going to agree to and what you're not is.
Yeah, we're up to 24 inches, you probably saw. And even then a specimen is $4,500. So we're contemplating as big as we can get in there. And I think it's unclear on what the new folks will be able to.
All right, well, thank you very much for all you've done so far. That's great.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
for-
I have a
for-
question.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
you got to
sorry.
stay up a little bit longer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the artwork. There, in the list of items, none of them are artwork, but on one of the pages says donation of items such as artwork. When somebody wants to donate a piece of art for the park, how is that assessed?
Well, it's assessed essentially, and you can see the art that's in the park right now. The foundation actually funded the last thing to go in, which is in the event garden. But all of that, in my recollection, comes before you.
Mhm.
And because none of it's going to be $4,000. I mean, the last one we put in was over 30.
So if someone brings a work of art, it's
Mhm.
this council that
Mhm.
decides whether it's of status to be in the park and the artists and
And
artistic quality and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I would
Okay.
hope we get
Typically
input
where it's
from
gonna be
people
placed,
on both
right?
the foundation and
And where.
Park and Rec first.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I think Elizabeth has a question.
And typically where it's going to be placed, correct?
Yeah,
Where?
Mhm.
yeah, the council selects where.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always recommendations. That's why you have folks like us doing this. But
Yes, so the history
you can't
on
say,
every
"Come
art
over here."
piece has been that the donor has come to Park and Rec, and Park and Rec has made a recommendation to the council to accept it if they liked it, or not to accept it if they don't like it, and made a recommendation on where it should be placed. And the council can decide, override that if the council wishes to,
Which we've done.
but That's the history of how it's happened. Any other questions for Walt?
I think the Park and Rec's done a good job drafting this.
Yeah, thank you. I know how much work you personally have done on this because I've worked with you on it and you've done a lot of work and I really appreciate your service to the
Yeah,
town.
well, it's probably the most important thing that's happening in the park, which is to resurrect the landscape.
You bet.
As Elizabeth points out, we spent a lot of money on the foundation on that event garden. And then the ball was dropped after we signed it off to
Yeah.
the town of Athens.
Yeah.
So we hope to resurrect that.
We will.
We do.
We will.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Walt. Is there any other public comment on this matter? Either from people in the room or online? Okay, I don't see any public comment, so I will close public comment. Comments from members of the council. Well, I'll make a comment. So one of the issues in here is setting a policy. This is item 9 under policy, which is the donation amounts that in either case, Park and Rec will need to recommend it, but then the approval will be, I think it should be by the city manager up to a certain dollar amount, and then it should come to the council. I personally think $2,500 is too small. It would mean every one of the items on the back page would be coming to the council.
Right.
Which personally, I would rather see larger items come to us. So Park and Rec recommended $10,000 as that deciding point. The city manager recommended 2,500. I'd be comfortable with 5,000, but I
would
wonder
too.
what
That
others
was my
think.
bet, 5,000.
Okay.
As you contemplate that number, is it the value of the item or the value that the town places on the item, as was mentioned, because it's the ongoing maintenance as well?
Well, my understanding is that the individual makes a cash donation. And there's the dollar amount of that donation is has been determined by the town arborist and with the support of the Park and Rec Committee. So it's the dollar, it's not the value of the item, because included in the item, and I've sat as a liaison to Park and Rec, I've sat through many of these discussions, and Park and Rec strongly wanted not just to include the cost of the item, but the initial cost of the item, but the all-in cost of maintaining the item, which personally I think was a good recommendation by Park and Rec. So the dollar amounts that you see on Appendix A include that expected maintenance cost. So I would say if somebody makes a donation of something where they are contributing $5,000 or more, then it should come to the council. And I guess we will just have to see, because if Appendix A changes with adding a 36-inch box and a 48-inch box, and both of those go over $5,000, we may not want to have to deal with every one of those, in which case $10,000 might be the right amount.
Right.
So, Bill.
Yeah, I was willing to stay with the 2,500. I can be persuaded to move up. Provided that, and I believe it's in here, is that the city staff is also involved in the acceptance. We don't need park benches all over the place. And in some areas, we don't want to put more trees, like right in the middle of the North Meadow. So I would like to have staff be, staff is responsible for the park, and staff needs to make the final decision with regards to that. Again, I thought that some of the items that were on A, a common 15-gallon tree, that doesn't rate for me. A plaque, 48-inch boxes makes some sense. And a species that our town arborist agrees to, I think is appropriate. And with regards to placement, again, if it's going to be any hardscape, I think that still the town and the council need to approve it. That's how it's been all along. you know, I'm willing to be convinced to go do something else. I don't know how many of these donations are going to come in. I'm hoping that the foundation is going to raise more money because they've got some plans to do some larger things as opposed to, you know, 15-inch box trees. And so I'm hoping that people make their donations to the foundation personally, but that's not part of this discussion. And I think that I guess the last thing is, you know, the rest of George's comments I think are appropriate and I support them. He and I have discussed them at length. So thank you.
Okay, well, let me ask a question then. Would you recommend that we take out the 15-gallon because that seems too small, and that maybe we add a 36 or 48-inch box?
I feel more comfortable with that. I mean, that's a sizable contribution to the park. I mean, anybody can buy a 15, you know, that's a spindly little tree that you dig a hole 2 feet deep and, you know, break it up and put it in there and put some water on it. Come on.
Yeah, well, I think it should be a 48-inch,
Yeah.
a substantial. All the trees that we have planted out here are all 48-inch or 64-inch boxes.
They're big.
But I do want to thank again Walt and his team
Of
for
course.
doing this and taking this on. That was a big job. Thank you. And thank you for standing up there.
Well, there were a number of comments received from the council, plus the addition of the 48-inch box is going to require an assessment of cost and future maintenance. We can make those modifications, provide a red line strikeout, return it to you at the next meeting under consent for approval if you like.
Great.
Sounds fine.
Sounds great.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's the direction from the council. Moving on to item 15. This is a review and provide feedback on proposed changes to fees and charges related to the park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. In essence, the proposed fees combine the split fee arrangement that was structured under the prior catering company that we had at the park, and then converted it into a singular hourly fee for both resident and non-resident. The split arrangement was developed as a structure, as I mentioned, due to catering by Dana, but catered to does not receive a portion of the rental fees. The changes do not represent a significant fee increase across the board at all, although the council may provide some direction, if desired, to the Park and Rec Committee to do further analysis to consider increasing any fees, if you so desire. I would suggest that the council discuss also some analysis around hourly rental of nearby uses to the pavilion and or the main house. That was discussed by the Park and Rec Committee as well. Rental of the, for example, rental of the water tower lawn might preclude a larger rental of the pavilion for a wedding or some other event. We received many inquiries to add the tower lawn to a main house rental as well as a pavilion rental. And the intent is to provide the flexibility to do that. Catered to noted that the tower lawn in North Meadow rentals would not include tables, chairs, electrical, or restroom access if rented independently. So it's typically expected that they would best be most rented as add-ons to other facility rentals. In the case of a solo tower lawn, say that 3 times fast, rental, there is a recommendation that they sign an additional document noting that such a rental is not guaranteed up until a certain point. And it could cause some mixed feelings with renters if they have to do that. With those comments, staff, representatives from the Park and Rec Committee, as well as Catered To, I believe are here this evening to address any specific questions the council may have.
Questions from anyone on the council?
Elizabeth?
Okay, no questions. Yes, you have a question?
So, yeah. So today, when somebody wants to rent the pavilion or let's say use the North Meadow, you know, they get the carriage house, and the carriage house provides restroom facilities for that large group, if it's a decent sized group, right? That's why we have it structured that way. Is that not correct? And
Sure.
under this proposed agreement, then if somebody just selected the North Meadow, then they would not have access to the restroom facilities in the carriage house. They would have to either use the main house or walk over to the ballpark or something like that. Is that correct?
I believe that's
Yes,
correct.
Correct.
And the Park and Rec Commission Committee, they recommended that number to be 75 people. So if you had 75 people and you rented an outdoor area, you would be required to rent a facility, a building with that. However, staff is recommending that number be lowered to 50 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Alex is here. He's the one who worked on the rental fees, and he can answer any questions.
Well, let me see if there's other questions from members of the council.
Also, Cassidy is on the Zoom if you have any questions for catered to.
Great, thanks, Sally. Did you have a question?
I was just curious why, actually was for you, why they changed it from, you said originally it was 70 and they said 50? Is that right?
No, we said 50.
We said 50. Which way to go?
I felt like 75 people would be a fine threshold, but it just was lowered to 50 just because we don't want to use up the bathrooms in the rest of the park. I mean, it just seems like a better number. But Alex, if you want to speak on that.
Let me just interject quickly. So right now, when it comes to, for example, day use permits, there's the limit of 50. And that's general use of the park, and they use the regular restrooms within the park. And so the thought is if you're exceeding that threshold, it really makes sense that you have access to restroom facilities and not impact the general use in the park, so that you can, whether it's the carriage house or the main house or the pavilion, that when you cross that threshold, it really makes sense that you have dedicated facilities and minimize the impact to the rest of the park users.
If I can make a comment. So the renting of the outdoor venue is really an exclusive use. The day use means really it could be shared with the rest of the public, another day user too. So, you could have a small party and just say, I want to just have our small party be, have exclusive use of the North Lawn. And what they can't do without getting catered to or a indoor venue is electricity. They can't get electricity. They can't get alcohol. They can't get catering. So there's a lot of restrictions, but it is an exclusive use that we think that some people may find useful if they don't want to go all the way and rent an indoor venue along with that. So that's kind of the distinction there.
I have a couple questions. So one thing that the city manager raised is the issue of someone being able to exclusively rent the north lawn, the little lawn near the water tower. And the north lawn gets rented independently often. I think right now they're required, if they rent the north lawn, to also rent the carriage house.
Yes.
And that's one thing that you're saying is undesirable, to link those two necessarily together anytime.
Yeah, giving people the ability to just have an outdoor venue only, especially in COVID, because people want to have more outdoor venues
Yeah.
to have that use. Yeah.
But my question is that if, for example, the water tower lawn were rented by someone exclusively, then that would, as I understand the comment, would adversely impact someone who were renting the event garden and the pavilion, for example.
Yeah, if it were a noisy event or would interfere with an indoor event, it could. So it could be something where the event manager is just careful about what types of event get to use the event garden area exclusively, or the water tower lawn exclusively, or encourage those events to use the north lawn instead. And if we actually get a lot of events that want to all be at the same time in outdoor venues, maybe it's time to think about increasing the price.
Have we had the water tower lawn independently rented? Is that something that has happened? Is there a
Don't have the water
demand?
tower lawn as on our fee schedule, so we haven't been able to offer it as an option. I have received many inquiries about just having that as an add-on to the main house or just independent. But because it's not on the fee schedule, we weren't able to offer it.
So it's not on the fee schedule now.
No, it's
I see.
included with the pavilion.
I see. So we could modify, let me see if I can sort of thread this. We could modify the proposed policy to say that the water tower lawn could be rented as an addition to the pavilion or the main house. That would take away the problem that you're highlighting, which I understand is if there's exclusive rental of the lawn, then that might adversely impact anyone renting the main house and wanting an outdoor event as well, or the pavilion and wanting an outdoor event as well.
However, may
Yeah, please.
I rebut what you just said, because that would preclude, I think, the goal that I think Alex was saying, some people just want to rent the outdoor lawn, but, the water tower lawn only, and not in connection with either the main or the pavilion.
Right.
And so, but if you make it that it could be rented with the pavilion or the main house, it kind of is that way already, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well,
That's
I
the
mean,
point.
you kind of have the use of it if you rent the pavilion.
No.
So if you rent the pavilion, you get the event garden, the water tower lawn, and the other side lawn. But when you rent the main house, you really just get those front step,
The
the
front steps
patio,
and the
wherever the
patio.
steps are. You don't get the event garden.
So this would give someone renting the main house the ability to use that.
Okay, so that just adds that to it. And you would add a fee to that.
So yeah, they would pay the rental fee of the main house, and then they would pay this additional fee for the water tower lawn, which I think is $165 or something like that per hour.
Good idea.
125, 125 per hour.
So are we still
Um,
just in questions only?
We haven't done public comment, so yes, we're in questions.
Okay, well, I just have a comment.
So
One of the things I want to emphasize, is it gives you the flexibility, so you can mix and match the different areas, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this, is that it's not so inflexible where they say, well, I really wanted these two areas. Because right now, if you do the north lawn and the carriage house, they're kind of a bit far apart, but the water tower lawn and the carriage house are kind of right next to each other. So it's more convenient for those who have mobility issues.
This,
oh, sorry, Bob.
sorry, this subcommittee that is working on this, that's a subcommittee of the of Park and Rec?
That's correct. It was Taylor, Henkel, and I.
And I'm also here as well, if you have questions.
That's Taylor, and
Uh-huh.
he was on the sub.
Cassidy as well from Katy.
Hi, yeah, I'm here if you have any questions for me.
Hi, Cass.
Great.
Good.
So every couple of years, we look at the fees associated with our rentals. And we normally do specifically like for weddings. We do an analysis and we do a market survey. Was there any market survey done with regards to the numbers that you're presenting, or if not, then I think that however we end up here, I think staff should bring this back for the council to go over the fees we're actually going to charge with regards to being competitive for what we're actually offering. But was there any sort of analysis done?
No, other than, well, no analysis. What we tried to do was make the hourly rate about the same as what you would end up in the flat fee for the minimum or average hourly use.
So you looked at the what we're paying today and then divided it by the number of hours. Where
Yeah,
we say it's
basic-
4-hour minimum, and then you did some little
Basically
rounding
divide
up
by
to
4,
make the numbers look different.
Rounded to the nearest 0 or 5.
All right, and how did you come up with the markup for non-residents?
Oh, it's the same, because the non-resident and resident, they already have an established flat
Okay.
fee. And so we just did the.
Did
math
the
the
Park
same.
and Rec think that maybe that should be a higher number, higher markup, say like 30% or something like that?
No, we didn't get feedback from the rest of Park and Rec in terms of what they would want in terms of how big the difference should be. But if the council has some direction, we can take a look at that and
So,
create a larger or smaller.
So-
difference. Yeah.
one last question. Was the overall drive here to say, let's get this thing, to where it's as flexible as possible so we can rent out the park 100% as much as we can?
No, it would,
The idea was not to have the park rented at 100%. The idea was to make it easy for people that want to rent facilities at the park to be able to see the numbers and how expensive things are. Our current schedule is very chaotic. There's a lot of line items. It's also based on 4-hour sections till 4 p.m., which a lot of events either want to end after 4 p.m. or start before 4 p.m. So really, it was just to clean up what we currently have and just make it easier for the user that wants to rent the facilities. But the idea wasn't to change the revenue amounts. The numbers that we have currently, there was market analysis used for those numbers, because every time we've come to the council for the pavilion or the main house or the carriage house, we have done those studies, but the numbers really aren't changing for this update.
And so was there any consideration with regards to, I mean, weddings are generally a big ticket item, and weddings do take pavilion, the event garden, and generally the main house. And so would there be package deals like this where we would put something together? They don't need to use the main house for that long, but the brides get dressed there and things like that. And that was one thing as I was going through this, I didn't see that. And I was wondering, did you give any consideration to that, or could you give any consideration to that?
So right now the pricing is on the weekend, I think on the weekend, minimum 2 hours for the main house. And I think that was geared toward the brides and the grooms, using that as a dressing room. And we kept that minimum 2 hours on the weekend for the main house.
But it's not a package. It's not a package.
No,
you
but
see.
it's not packaged right now either, main house with pavilion. At least I don't understand it.
We traditionally give the main house with it for a wedding.
They pay for them both separately.
Typically, there's no package deal. You have to buy, the main house and the pavilion separately. We have had a lot of events where we've had something in the pavilion. We've also had a different event in the main house.
But not in the event garden.
Not in the event garden. These would be just inside events.
Okay, all right, no problem.
If
So
I
we,
can-
but we still could do a package, write some
I
packages.
don't have any package deals because it's not on the fee schedule, but it's something that I think Park and Rec would be open to studying more, so.
But why do you need a package? You've broken down the hourly fees for all the bits and pieces. Somebody can put their own package together.
I think Councilmember Woodward was proposing maybe if you put 2 or 3 venues together, they get maybe a discount by 10%. That could, is that what you're proposing? Vice Mayor? Something like that, where you put 2 to 3 of the venues together, 2 indoor ones and an outdoor one, you get maybe a 10% discount on. I mean, we could think about it if that's. what the
But
council
I'm just trying to address, some of the things that George brought up too, is that, when somebody gets to North Meadow and they get the event garden and then suddenly they want to have a wedding and we lose that business.
Yeah, well, the thing I was proposing to Sally and Cassidy today was that if there's a noisy event, have them use the North Meadow. And then once the North Meadow is taken up, if another noisier event wants to sign up for an outdoor venue, maybe decline that business.
Yeah.
If there's already the pavilion or the main house is being used, and even if it's not being used until maybe, I would suggest, well, and then you could decide maybe if it's, 1 week until the event, maybe it's okay because you're not going to get someone to sign up that late, but you could just have a straight policy if it's a noisy event, nothing in that area.
Don't get my questions wrong. I mean, I do appreciate the fact that you've done this. You put it in, obviously you put in a lot of time on both of these things and appreciate it. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Alex.
Did you have a question, Bob?
I guess my last question is, at any point pre-pandemic, because obviously the last 2 years have been abnormal. We're talking like it's a scheduling nightmare. Is there really that much contract use of the park facilities?
So I can let Cassidy speak to this, but the amount of events we're having is ticking up, but it's not ticking up as fast as we thought it would. So that's why we still think that a la carte outdoor areas is still a good idea to at least have that as an option. But Cassidy is available to speak more on the event rental numbers.
Yeah. Hi. So we have seen an increase, definitely. I think what would be a great benefit from having this is the add-on factor. A lot of the weddings and things that are booking now are smaller. So they're, 50, 60 people who don't need to rent or don't want to rent the full pavilion for that, but want to utilize the water tower lawn for their ceremony and then come over to the patio of the main house for their reception. So I see this kind of being utilized as more of an add-on type of thing rather than having it being a bunch of conflicting reservations. Day use permits have definitely been increasing, but I don't think that there's been a huge scheduling rush that we would run into too many problems that way, at least at this time.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, Council, perhaps Cassidy can talk a little bit about the fees, comparable venues, what some of the clients or renters are saying about our fees.
And Mayor Tagolia, perhaps we should open public comment and then allow her to continue speaking.
Yeah, I'm sort of waiting to get through the questions to take public comment. So Cassidy, if you want to address that, and then we'll take public comment after you address the fee issue.
Yeah. So when we first started talking about the adjusting or looking at the pricing, I did look at some local venues and we're pretty reasonably priced in comparison. I think that I think we're along the same level with the other venues in this area with similar amenities. So I don't think, from my opinion, I don't think that we're too high or too low in that respect. I think it's pretty fair.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Oh, that's all the questions. So let me see if there's any public comment on this. Does anybody in the room or online have a comment? Okay, I don't see any public comment. So comments from members of the council. I'll close public comment. Bring it back.
Well,
then Elizabeth.
I like the simplicity of it and the flexibility of it. And until we start having scheduling problems because people are beating down our door to use every square inch of our park, I think this is a good way to proceed. I'd like to see the park used. I don't want to see it overrun. I think what you've done is good. And I think renting the lawn space and backing it down to the 50 people I don't exactly know how they do any kind of event without access to bathrooms, but I guess most of the bathrooms are open at all normal hours in the park. So I guess that's how it gets by. So I like what you've put together with those modifications that we discussed.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Well, I guess my comments are, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to try to figure all this out. And, like other venues that I've had experience with recently has been like the Circus Club. And they've got a map of all their facilities and they've got little areas marked out and the rental price for each one. So I guess that's kind of what you're doing. You've got the map of the park and the areas all mapped out, and you've got a fee structure for each one. I think that it gets a little messy if people just want to rent it for like an hour or something. I think there has to be, really good minimums. 2 hours may work, but I think that's, that may not be enough unless the price is higher, and I would really encourage us to take a look at our prices. And I know that Cassidy says that she feels that our fees are reasonable, but we do have a very unique venue out there. And I think that, come summer, we're going to see more and more. And the flexibility, again, the bathroom situation is an issue. If there's an event in the pavilion and they don't want their bathrooms being used by somebody from the water tower lawn or the main house, I don't know where all the other bathrooms are that are publicly accessible. Play area, I don't know. Yeah, well, that's a little, something. Or, can they rent porta potties or something? I don't know. Those, really classy porta potties, that could be an add-on. I don't know, but I really appreciate the efforts. And we do have this jewel of our park. And we don't want it overrun and we don't want to sell it short. So I really hope that we can take a look at the fees and go from there. So, but simplicity is much better than a lot of, well, if you rent these 3 areas, you're going to get a discount. I wouldn't kind of go down that road necessarily.
Bill.
First off, I thought you had a great idea with regards to if you're renting it on the same day, it should be a surplus fee on top of it. So that was a great idea. So I appreciate you doing that. I think that, yeah, I'd like to have us do a little bit more analysis on the price. I'm concerned about the restroom situation. And I'm concerned about somebody has having a wedding and then somebody has a kid's birthday party on the North Meadow. That could become a problem. You had some other good ideas with regards to, having an interactive website for doing that. It's just that I just don't know that the town has the wherewithal at this point in time, fee-wise, to go ahead and handle that. But I thought that what you've done is good. I appreciate the
just
time
gotta
that
say,
you put down
That
there.
was
Excuse me?
Taylor's idea, not mine, but it's a good idea nonetheless. I don't want to take credit for it.
It is a good idea. It is a good idea. I thought, wow, that's a great idea. It probably came from Jessup too. Why can't we use his website? But anyway, but I thought that for weekends though, when we're getting down to looking at the pricing, especially Saturday nights, not Sunday nights, but Saturday nights, maybe there should be a little bit of a premium because occasionally the noise from the pavilion, for example, people in Felton Gables, or if it's a North Meadow thing, there's Atherton residents there on the east side that there have been some noisy issues. So, but I do appreciate that you all took the area, took this on as you did the other thing, and so we should probably have staff kind of work some of these issues and then work on the pricing. And then maybe take one final look at it. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Did you have a comment?
I agree with what most people said. I think between what Elizabeth and Bill said, I do like the idea of packages, I think. But I don't think we should be deciding that. I think that's something that should be decided for people whose boots are on the ground and they understand the flow and what's needed. But I applaud what you did. I like having more flexibility and ability to use the space.
So my comment is, I think that the minimum of 50 people without renting a facility to get to the bathroom is the right number. I think more than that is too many, and it puts too much pressure on the restrooms at the ball field and the children's play area and the main house if that one's open. I think I agree with Bill that it would be wise to do an investigation to get some comparative analysis since part of the purpose I think that Park and Rec did here was to try to standardize and simplify the fee structure and try to avoid having to come back and do a huge review every 3 years or so. But here we are. So we ought to do the analysis. I would recommend on the fees that the fee structure for me that's proposed is fine. I would round everything up to the next 0. Rather than have any 5s in there, I'd just make it simpler. I try to make the numbers as simple as possible. And they're pretty, and it's a big improvement. And I think that the recommendation of eliminating the penalty and charging someone who hasn't reserved day use on the same day a 2x fee, that's just what the fee is the right way to go. I want to make sure that we in fact charge those people, because if we don't, then it ends up not being effective. I think the final thing I want to say is I do think that there's a potential problem with independently renting the water tower lawn. And the reason for that is because it's so close to other venues. If it's rented with the carriage house or with the main house or with a pavilion, I have no problem. And I'd like to give staff some flexibility. If there's no other rental and someone wants to rent that lawn for a birthday party, I have no problem with that. But the problem arises if somebody rents that lawn, there's nothing else rented, and they rent it 3 months in advance for a birthday party, and then somebody wants to rent the main house and the pavilion and the event garden for a wedding, which is going to be a much better use and bigger ticket item for the town, and then they've got a birthday party on the lawn, that's a problem. So I'm not exactly sure how to deal with that. I'd like to give staff some flexibility on it, but I guess my gut tells me it's better to tie that lawn to a facility, which it currently isn't available for. So I think that would be a good addition.
Also, if I could, one other thing, the idea, putting in the COLA is right on. So that was a good idea too. I assume that was yours.
But I do think whenever it goes into effect, things should be rounded up to the next zero.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
was, this is kind of I know she wants to talk, but I just want to ask a quick question about doing an interactive website. Other parks do that. Is there a reason why we've never had that, or is there not funding for that? Seems like
This is the
that.
marketing piece.
No, I'm talking about being able to do reservations online. Isn't that what you're talking about? Because the only time I've ever rented anything at a park, which wasn't ours, I'm sorry, I went online, was able to do the whole thing right online. It was easy and efficient. So can we
So
do
we
that
haven't
now?
looked into the funding for that, but I know that we are working on a new website. So it was something I was going to talk to Anthony about, but we haven't looked into the funding.
Yeah, I'm going to comment just briefly on that. Keep in mind that all rentals that are 50 or more people require exclusive catering. And so there's a lot of coordination between whoever's renting and our event management company at Cater To. And so when it comes to that sort of online reservation, whether there's a possibility, and we'll work with Cassidy as to how things can happen, but the reality is that the calendar is managed by Cater To. And I think that we've had information on our website as to current reservations and what may potentially be available, but we haven't yet gone to the point of just online reservations. And it may be that that's something that's doable for day use permits, because those are limited in number and I guess easier calendar. They don't require as much coordination as those larger events.
Does Cater To have an online reservation system that we can point to?
Cassidy?
Online reservation system in terms of like people making contracts with us.
Yes.
So Catered To is, well, they work at so many different locations, so many different venues that we can't do that for the Catered To side on that end. If we were to work something like that out for the park, I could see maybe we could have like a pending hold on a date or something like that. I can see if maybe we can work. I'm not sure how that would work on that end.
One of the other issues that the councils specified with respect to the park rentals is that they have to come to me for signature of certain sizes of events for approval, mainly because of parking, and we have little league activities and we have other things going on in the park, such as town events and such, that we don't want to overbook our park. And having an online system, we could have blackout dates and things like that, but it makes it a little more challenging to have control over what's going on in our park.
And I just wanted to make one comment about the day use permits. So with MC no longer being in the park on a daily basis, it will be hard to have them issue same day at the park permits. So I'm not sure if doubling the fee, it's not something we would collect fees on if we're not at the park. If we're open during the week, then we can issue them. But we get most of our permits on the weekends for walk-ins, and nobody will be there to issue permit money if we no longer have MC in the park.
Yeah, we're still working on that one.
Bob.
On that point, briefly, I was kind of shocked to find out that MCE was the enforcement agent on the park use. And apparently it works. It's mind-boggling. Back to fees. When we did the last go round on fees, I was kind of shocked by the increase. And in fact, I went to George, in my finance committee role, and said, this is ridiculous. All these people are paying a lot of taxes and now that you're going to charge them a small fortune to use the park. George says, well, residents never use it. They do it at their house. But I'm perfectly happy with the fees the way they are. And I would really caution against any more increases to the residents. I just don't think it's justified, particularly for something that's a rounding error in our budget. So I would disagree with my fellow council members on that particular topic.
I was saying up the outside fee by 30+%.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, anyway.
If you guys give us direction on the difference of the fee should be between resident and non-resident, we can make the numbers work however you want. So
I think we need to look
Well,
at that.
I think it's
I
going
mean,
to staff.
I think we
isn't
need
it?
to look at that more closely
Yeah.
before we give direction.
and I actually like your idea of rounding to the nearest zero. I only rounded it to the nearest 5 because it's an
It was
hourly
closer.
rate. And so if you do a 6-hour or 7-hour minimum for the pavilion, like on the weekend, it would change it pretty large percentage wise. So it'll increase it a little bit. We'll kind of round up to the nearest zero then.
Mhm.
Actually may round down in some cases, but
What your write-up said in the first page is it should be end in a 9. I don't know.
9,
So
if it's
maybe
a-
somebody else
if it's a
wrote
good-
that
if it's a
beside
good
you.
value, But 0, if it's high quality, and everything in this town, because of the city council, is high quality.
It's a 0, right?
Well,
Exactly. Okay.
So I just want to ask the council, what's the will of the council? Because I don't feel strongly about getting an investigation of the fee structure is okay with me. I'd like to see it rounded up to a 0 because I think it's easier to be on zeros.
I'd like to see the non-resident fees higher. And, for weddings and things like that, I'd like to have the staff to tell us what a number is. And I also believe that Park and Rec has done a great job, and I think it should be handed over now to staff to finish up. And they can do some analysis.
We can look around and see what comparable fees are. We can work with catered to do that. This has got to come back to you anyway, and we're bringing it back as a public hearing to adopt the fees probably in June, consistent with the budget.
Oh, that's right. It'll come when we adopt the whole fee structure in the
Right.
budget.
Right,
Okay, so I think that's good direction. If you'll bring it back then.
right.
Great. Okay.
Thank you,
So-
Alex.
Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Thanks, Walt.
We are now moving on to item 16, which is consideration of the budget for the town center grand opening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The city council subcommittee, which consisted of Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Hawkins Manuelian, have been working on the grand opening celebration. We are going to have our second meeting with the library subcommittee coming up next week, I think, or the week after.
25th.
Yeah, next week. So this request, because timing is short for the June 4th event, the request is a high-level budget number of about 30K. Time is short for planning for the event, and the budget will be required in order to engage vendors and make other time-sensitive planning decisions for the event. The library will share in the cost of the event for the Saturday celebration. The proposed VIP donor dinner would be funded entirely by the town and/or charitable donations to the town. And there are other considerations that the council may wish to discuss this evening in addition to the budget amount itself, such as the venue for the VIP donor dinner, indoors, outdoors, tent, no tent, that sort of thing. And it would be appropriate to provide some consensus feedback to staff on those issues, as well as authorize a budget amount. And the subcommittee may wish to add additional information.
Does the subcommittee wish to add anything to the staff report?
We're going to hold our second meeting, so it's still in the planning stages. So we don't have a lot of detail to give. One of the members of the ad hoc committee has been underwater with a big event that's happening this weekend. And once that's over, I think some brain space can be applied to this. But needless to say, you know, the broad strokes are kind of laid out. And then we want to collaborate with the library in their view and the scope of what they feel that they've done this a lot. The library really knows how to, you know, have grand openings for their new libraries. And they're going to be part. We have not yet met with them in a planning. Do you have anything to add?
Will we have another opportunity to get everyone's input?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
before then, on questions, for example, indoor, outdoor, there's some big general questions that are big budget items. Like,
I
You're
don't know
talking
how
about
you're
the
going to
grant-
get council
wait.
input other than you're getting tonight. I mean,
You're wait a minute, but you're gonna like, there's two phases here, two parties.
right,
So the grand opening townwide is got to be, you know, outside. in
Right.
the, you know,
yeah,
in the
that's,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, because of that, so I don't, does everyone agree about that?
no, let's take questions. Any questions? I have a question. I'm looking at the donor appreciation dinner on June 2nd, where
Okay,
the estimate is $8,000. The last time I looked at a tent, it cost more than $8,000. And if there's 100 people, which was, I think what the estimate was, it was actually 100 to 125 at $8,000. That's $80 a person for a dinner. That seems just, I don't have how do you make that work?
Those three buckets are just buckets. The number may flux between them all. We just haven't had the hardcore planning that we need yet. We just need a dollar figure to really
those
start
buckets were
plunking money
not
down.
developed by the committee. Those were developed by staff.
Okay.
Rick, Bill was going to grill hamburgers.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that.
You're gonna make hamburgers. Okay. Any other questions from members of the council? No. Is there any public comment?
I was gonna say, how did we size it to 500 people? It may be 500 people. I'm thinking more, it's 350 to 400, but not that it's gonna make a substantial difference, but the library will be a big draw, I guarantee you. But how did you come up with 500, or was just a peg number?
That's probably just a big number. Is that in the staff report somewhere?
Yeah, where are we seeing
It
500?
says 3 to 500
3 to 500 people.
in the second paragraph on page 2.
Yeah, that's just the swag.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any public comments, so I'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Comments from members of the council.
So is the 30K enough?
I don't know. That's a good question. There's two different, just to set the stage here, is that we're talking about two different events. One was just during the day, and it's going to be more family oriented. It's going to be outside. We're going to be giving environmental tours of the building. We're going to be doing that kind of a thing. The focus, I think a lot of it during that particular one is going to be on the library, because that's their opening, the equivalent of the ribbon cutting that we already did for them. And they will have indoor and outdoor things. When we get to the private party, it's a donor party, and we're going to unveil our donor wall. Hopefully that will be in, and we'll be able to unveil that, and we'll have a dinner for the private donors. How many people are at that is kind of a judgment call.
Yeah.
We can't invite everybody that's on that wall. It's going to be too big an event. So we kind of arbitrarily set up things. So some of the big decisions are, I would think that maybe the money for the donor event would be bigger, and the money for the grand celebration on our part might be less, since that's paid for half by library. So these numbers are not maybe, I think,
They're kind
correct.
of
Is the big
fungible.
number, the
Yeah.
big bucket number?
Yeah.
So I don't know what our goal is here. Here we're picking on a big budget number, but then I don't know if we need to use this as the only venue we're going to have to get everyone's opinion on what we actually want.
So if I can follow up with that, the donor dinner, the sit-down donor dinner that we're planning, we really don't know how many people are going to come. We really don't. And I don't think we will really know until we send out a notice, a kind of an invitation, okay? And so one of my, and June 2nd is really fastly approaching, okay? And so we will not know the scope of this party, which translates into dollars unless we have a little handle on that. Now, George has done a swag of the donors from 50,000 up, right? And, you know, a couple or, you know, a family of 4 or, you know, whatever. And it came out to be about 100 people, right? That kind of optimistically speaking. So, so do we plan for 100 people? Or do we send out, you know, an Evite kind of a thing as a probe, you know, giving the date and the venue and see what kind of response we get?
Okay, so I'll make a
Yes.
comment. I think we budget for the 100 people. I think we need to set some rules. Who are we going to invite? I think the
think we
concept
just
of
did.
inviting everyone who donated $50,000 or more and one guest, not 4 family members, and
Okay.
one guest
Mhm.
makes perfect sense.
Okay.
And then I think that there probably are some other people, everyone on the council, key staff, there's Anna Eshu, there's a few people,
The architect.
the architect and the
Right.
contractor,
Yeah.
the general manager, I think they should be invited.
Mhm.
I actually see these events as totally separate.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
I questioned whether we should do this fast, because I agree with you. I mean, I think tonight we need to decide who's going to be invited. We should budget for it. And we should send out the invitations. And then you're right, you don't know how many are going to accept, but we'll find out. Given the interest I've heard from community members, I think that there'll be substantial interest. Now, you know, it's early June. People haven't quite started to go on vacation yet, so that speaks more
Well, that's
positively.
kind of why we were
In
trying
terms
to
of the,
do it then.
I personally think it should be in the lobby. That's right in front of the donor wall. If we can't get enough tables in there, I think we should put in long tables and do it family style. I think you can get 100 people in there. It just depends on how you get them in there.
Well, okay.
But let me
that's-
finish.
No, I just was, I would.
Let me finish.
Okay. No.
And
Uh-huh.
I think that in terms of the dollar amount for that kind of a dinner, I mean, I can't imagine we're gonna get it catered for less than $150 a person. And I don't want to serve hot dogs. It's thanking people who donated $50,000 or more. We should have a decent dinner for them. And I just can't believe it costs less than that. And if you're going to put out a tent, it's another $15,000. So I don't think it should be in a tent. I think that'd be a big mistake.
I agree with you, Mayor, that having it in the lobby would be spectacular, would be absolutely spectacular. I would like to have somebody lay it out and see how many people we can get in the lobby, either family style, long tables, or, you know, tables of 6, you know, scattered around.
Tables at 10 are typical.
Whichever, 10, 6, 8, you know, can you fit? Tables of 10 take up more room.
Not the tables of 6.
Yeah, well.
But somebody can figure that out. We don't have to.
That's,
figure that out.
well, that's what I'm saying. We need to figure that out to see if that's even feasible. And then, you know, where else? I mean, because you want to have it in one kind of location and not kind of scattered around, because then you lose your group of people and you don't have a sense to have speeches and accolations and things like that. So, I mean, but I'm perfectly fine, whatever you know.
If we were going to use the lobby, I'm not opposed to that, but remember, we're going to do a ribbon. We're going to take off, we're going to unveil the donor wall, right?
Yep.
That's the thing.
Perfect, yeah.
But in order to do, are you going to do that with everyone seated? So how would you got to kind of visual. So you appreciate everybody be sitting and then we're going to put, so we're not going to stand around it.
No, that's it. They
And
can
if we're
see
going to
it,
have
and then you get up
cocktail,
and go.
usually you'd have cocktails first.
Yeah.
It seems odd to be having this meeting like this. I think
Yeah,
the budget
it
for,
is.
the big questions I think we do need to decide is, are we going to stick with this date? Because it is
If
a
the
really
invitation
quick
doesn't go
date.
out next week
Yeah,
at the latest,
Absolutely.
forget the date.
No, I think it's really short notice. So do we want to stick with that date? Remember, there was waffling about it because it's graduation week of the local high schools. So there will be a lot of family in town and people having those kind of events. We could, and then people were arguing if we go any later, it's summer and some people go, but I think if you're not on a big event like the end of school, then it's a wash. So that's the first question I think we should decide. And then the numbers that are here, I don't agree with how they're divided at all, but let's just decide on the bigger number. I agree with you that a per person sit down of the level of what we're doing, that does not account for that. And it does not account for a tent for sure. And if we did do a tent, then you'd use the lobby for cocktails and the unveiling, and then you'd walk out to the tent. That was the thought process behind a tent.
Or you use the outdoor area
outdoor
for
courtyard.
cocktails outside with
Yes.
flag lights
In
and
the
stuff,
civic hall.
and then go into
Then
the
go
tent.
inside.
How many people can we get in here? I don't think it's a zone for 100 people.
No.
I think it's
Sit down
90.
tables, you're not going to get 100 people in here.
No. So, I
The
mean,
lobby's bigger than this, but somebody can figure that out.
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
right. So somebody needs to figure it out before we lock our mind into it.
well, then we can
Date
put
and
the date
budget
off.
to start with. Let's, can we at least discuss date and budget first? And then
I-
decide.
I don't like doing things cheap, particularly something like this dinner. And we're way behind the curve, it strikes me. I actually thought that you guys had more, but you've been tied up with other things, so I don't see how you're gonna put together a quality event by June the 4th.
Oh, I think we can.
The outdoor event.
Oh, the outdoor event, that's
That's
not
easy.
a problem. And
I'm not worried about that.
okay, June 2nd.
And
June
I
2nd
I
is
also,
the dinner.
okay, then June 2nd.
Yeah, okay.
I'm also not too concerned about that being cheap or not, because I don't think it's that kind of event.
No, right.
And
right.
I'd be surprised if we couldn't do that for $10,000 or $12,000 myself. But the
think so.
dinner's got to be done right. And
You're right.
What if we separate those two?
yeah,
There's
We
no
should.
reason why we said the donor dinner has to be the Thursday before this other event. One can be more the library event in the
Mhm.
public space, and then we,
Beautiful.
later on, when we have a little more time, because if you're giving someone in our community an invitation to an event, it's like giving an invitation to a wedding. You have to have a save the date and give people time.
Yeah.
So we could push this out to the summer for just the donor part and the unveiling of the donor wall.
Mhm.
you don't even know if you can find a caterer that's ready to go on this short notice.
I think they've asked Cater to, and they said yes.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
right? Is that right?
One more time.
Francesca asked Cater to, and they are available,
For
correct?
June
Yes.
2nd.
Oh, good.
For the date. We can do it. We can do it with our own caterer. So we could pull it off. The issues are, giving people enough time, and these are busy people, giving them enough time in their schedule to put it in their calendar.
So are you planning on end of June, or once you get into July, people are
gone.
going on vacation, they're not going to be available, you might as well plan for a group of 5.
Yeah, no, I think if you push it past, I don't know, the week of the council meeting, you're too late. You
Yeah.
should just
September.
forget it and go to September.
And then we want to get the donor wall out before, everybody always comes in and asks about the donor wall, or we're going to wait
When
till
is the donor-
September to not
I-
show it. I
I
think
say we
that's,
either do it on the 2nd or we do it on the 16th, but I don't see much alternatives. Second or 16th, I'd say. You can gain 2 weeks if you want, but
I think,
if we're gonna do it on the 2nd, the invitations should go out,
next week.
at the
Well,
beginning of next week.
this week, yeah, that's what I'm saying, that like the evites and then the formal, you can do evites, we've got emails and everything, and you can follow up with a formal written invitation,
That's fine.
mail or,
We could do a
Yeah.
postcard, the
Yeah.
post.
well,
An
an
e-bike.
envelope.
Yeah, an envelope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so.
That could go out
16th
this
would
So
week
it
if
could
somebody
get,
can
it could
spend
get
time
done.
on it.
It really could get done. I
It won't
mean,
happen
and-
this week, but I mean, we could work on it next week. We would need help. We have names, but not all the emails and that sort of stuff.
We've
for
got
some of these
pretty
donors.
many, George.
We have a
You
lot
don't
of
have
that.
emails for everybody at
Yeah.
50,000 and above?
Not
Question. Why'd you
everybody.
ask why we picked
Yeah.
Thursday?
There's some missing.
Yeah.
Say what?
Why couldn't we have it on a Saturday, say the 18th? Why was it picked for a Thursday? Probably because you were having it a couple days before the grand opening, but if we move it, we can move it to a different day in the week,
Well, I
can't we?
think everybody was thinking that, see, by that time into June, there are a lot of graduations happening. Okay, because schools are getting out the week of June 7th, and then people go on vacation after that. So that's why we were saying that if it's in the first part of June, then, you know, we're pretty safe because school is still in session for the most part, not every school, but a lot of them. And June 4th, the library felt was a good date for them. And they've done this a lot. And so we thought, well, if we push it just a couple of days prior to that and do the sit down and the donor recognition and, you know, give them the first real visual of the town center and then put the other outdoor event for the grand town-wide opening, that would work with the library. So that was kind of the rationale of that. So, but you know, it's really, either way, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, without planning, if you were going to move forward with the 2nd or even on the 16th, you know, like others, you know, I think the 30,000 needs to be raised to at least 50,000 to do it right. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it right in the time that we have, but y'all have to decide that. Y'all are the committee.
Mhm.
I can support 50,000 for it, but we have to decide when it's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
And the town's going to need support to get it done. This thing has to go out next week, or let's just wait until September.
I can put
September's
the
too long.
invitation together and you know, pass it by y'all before sending it out. Can I do that?
Yeah,
What was that
George
question?
send it out.
What was that?
I can put the invitation together, like from.
We would
Eventbrite.
welcome your help to put the
Huh?
invitation. We would welcome your help to put the
Thank you.
invitation together.
So what is the date? What date?
Be June 2nd?
You want to do June 2nd?
I think so. because it's-
There's valid reasons to do it then.
Yeah,
I mean,
And it-
I certainly would help with figuring out the
the logistics and stuff.
layout and logistics. If you've got a caterer, that's a big
But
part of it.
That's
I've-
the
That is a
big
big part of
thing,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
agree
and
with
I've,
you.
I've done a million of these things, not up here in San Jose.
Any of us can help.
Just to,
Two.
So that's already the 2 that are here.
Well,
Well, you can break it into subtasks, I think.
So subcommittees.
and not talk to each other.
the
Yeah,
sign
that's a
language.
problem.
No, but
Problem.
if you can work on it this week, if Diana can't work on it,
Yeah.
Diana can
I
drop
can work
off
on
the committee and Bob can join you.
Yeah.
We can make it happen.
What was that?
Got to make it happen.
He's gonna make Diana,
I could change the.
Oh, change the committee.
subcommittee.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend that for very long. If you want to do it for 2 days, what we're talking about, you're talking about Thursday
No,
and
you're
Friday.
off. When you're off, you're off.
No, if you're off, you're
Okay.
off.
I don't
Well,
think
I opened
Elizabeth's
my
gonna
big
like
mouth and I realized
She's
I
working
am
on
out
it.
of town for the latter part of May for 5 days or 6 days. I can't remember.
no, see, you're gonna be geographically,
Undesirable.
yes.
I think we're not getting,
We're not getting any closer.
no.
it. Well,
I
having
I
just
think the
worked.
subcommittee hasn't done the work it needed to do, and so we're gonna be, either it's gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. We gotta decide. We can't spin wheels on it.
Well, I think we can do it if we commit the money.
Mhm.
I think that the amounts of money, I appreciate the suggestion of going higher in the budget. That's absolutely would be great.
Mhm.
I do not want to be committed to House Divided in the proposal that was in front of you,
Mhm.
because I think there's going to be less for library and more for the donor dinner.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that if we take that off the table of House Divided, we up the number, I think we can pull it off. And I'm assuming right now that Cater to can do it. That was Francesca who said that, and I did not personally talk to them, so let's just assume
So
that's the
let me
case.
just kind of summarize my understanding of it. You know, if we can approve 50,000 for both parties, I understand that we may need a private donation for alcoholic beverages for the donor dinner, and anonymous donors are welcome. And I've talked with one that is willing to sponsor the alcohol for the donor dinner because the town cannot buy alcohol. So, so that, and then June 2nd, we'll do Evites right away, 50,000 and up donors, and there was something else. And well, the location. I'm really thrilled if we can put it in the lobby. I have a feeling that the lobby is not as big as we imagine it to be. And I don't want to bifurcate it. I guess we could have upstairs, downstairs. Okay, I agree with you on that. A tent is hugely expensive. I know that for a fact. I love the idea of a tent because it would be a rectangular, you know, straight shot. You can create a wonderful environment of it, and you can access it from this area, and you have your cocktails out in the patio so people can enjoy that early evening and outside environment, then go into the tent and you have your festivities, and it's a confined area. If we can do it in the lobby, I would love it. Sending out the Evite right away and trying to get responses to get a sense of how many people. Yeah, so that we know if it's 100 or 150 or
It's not
50.
150.
No.
There's not 75 individual donors. No, there's not.
no,
There's less than
right.
50.
Okay, but then other notorieties.
Yeah, but there's not that many.
There's
maybe
12,
20.
18, and 3, so 33 donors at the 50K and above.
33 donors.
So double that for 66 for the plus ones, plus your VIPs.
100.
Less
I
than
mean,
100.
Okay, so that was a good number then. Does that sound reasonable?
I have one last thing to ask. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me, but I have one last thing to ask. Are you guys going to just leave it to us to come up with what's going to be, like who's talking and what's going to be presented? Because you have these people sitting, so we all agree we're going to pull the curtain and unveil the wall. Will this be the group that talks? Is there anyone else that's going to talk? Do you guys want to just leave it to us?
Well, I
Because
think the mayor has to, you know, start the festivities, of course.
So I do want to make a comment about that. If we have the entire council in attendance and we start having discussions about town business, it does become a council meeting and less of a social function. So please be aware of that.
It has to be publicly announced.
Correct.
So we can't sit at the same table with each other.
No, I don't think
I wouldn't want
there's,
to anyway.
I don't think there would be any reason to have any discussion about any council item whatsoever. I
If
think-
there's discussion, I would really limit it to maybe one person speaking as opposed to multiple council members speaking. And that way we can keep it as a social function, which is exempt from the Brown Act. Otherwise, we'd have to notice it. It'd have to be open to the public entirely.
Got it.
And
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think I'm happy to do it. I think that'll work.
You and George welcome the people and talk a little bit.
George-
and That's it. Let's go.
It's really just going to be a welcoming and an unveiling of the donor wall, but really it's thanking the people for what they contributed to make this happen that we're in right now and that we will be in then. And I think that's the message.
I had wanted to do something more like a video or something like that, that would or a slideshow, which would be cheaper. I got vetoed on video because we don't have a budget. But in the dream scenario, I would have liked to have had 2 short videos, one which would be the making of the building that they paid for and a thank you, and this is what you did. And we do before and afters, and we put that to music. And another one might be the history of the town. But I think that the history of the town is going to be saved for the 100th
Yes,
anniversary.
yes,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
and it's too
exactly.
much work.
Yeah. We
But
have a lot of
we have the
photographs.
video of
You have a
the,
month.
No, but
to
we
get
have a
all
lot
this
of
done.
photographs, you know.
Yeah,
of
for this,
in-
for that would be photographs, which is.
if you can spend some time on it, you can do some of this, but there has to be time spent on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we have to do something. I mean, if picture, if you'd spent $1 million.
Oh,
out of
I'm
your
happy to put it off
pocket on
till September.
something, But,
let's see.
but we could do something with, we can't do a video, but we could do some sort of presentation. When you go to a kid's graduation, like they show a short little video. So this would be something pulling together the pictures of the before and after and the ribbon cutting and things like that.
There's a lot of videos if we taped the
There-
whole
We
construction.
do have the
I know.
time-lapse video for the most of the project. We had to take the cameras down once the buildings got in the way of things. So we have some of that. We do have photos throughout the project's development. Someone with a lot of time could put those together into some sort of collage and photography.
Can we get
show, but-
volunteers? Can we call for volunteers? Having just done this big, huge event with a lot of volunteers, can we call for volunteers? Is that something, or a town committee
To do what?
to help us on anything we need help with? Because otherwise this group has, at the end of this meeting, we're gonna decide on a date and a budget in a very, very broad stroke, but then you guys are gonna trust us to
We're
just
gonna
do
have
it.
a sit-down dinner, thank you dinner for the donors
it.
and the unveiling of the donor wall. And to the extent that we
that's
can
it.
have a little video playing but then we'll have speeches and, just acknowledge.
And we'll invite everybody to come on Saturday to do tours of
Yeah.
of the place.
Yeah.
So there'll be no tours the night of the tour, of the dinner. I
You
mean.
could do private VIP tours
Private
as
tours.
part of the
yeah,
dinner. That's not a
during the
problem.
cocktail hour. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they're
Hopefully the
just.
library will be open then.
If not, I got a
We
key.
own it.
I think we've got the key to the door, don't we?
Okay.
But the video will take work. And so the subcommittee is going to have to
We'll figure that out.
work on that.
If the subcommittee can do it, it'd be awesome. I love the idea. I think you've got the budget to do a video. We've got the material.
I've got a video producer that I can use.
Okay, I think we need a motion.
Yes.
I move that we allocate $50,000 to the event on the 4th of June, as well as the dinner, the donor dinner on the 2nd of June.
In the lobby.
In the lobby or
If
wherever they can
possible.
fit it. They
Yeah.
have to figure out. how
No,
big
if
they
it's 60,
Okay, in the lobby.
thank you. Second,
I'll second it, but I'm not convinced we figured out we can do it in the lobby.
well, there's a maximum 66 donors and then there's,
It's 100 people. I'd have to walk it, with my tape measure, but assuming we can do it in the lobby, yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay.
But what happens if we can't do it in the lobby? We got to have a quick video meeting to change the motion. I don't,
staff will have to figure out where to do it.
If we can't do it in the lobby, we'll be coming back to the council for a modification or an update and you can opine at that.
well,
Yeah,
I would leave the language. We all agree that we'd like to do it in the lobby. I just leave that language out of the motion, then we don't have to deal with it.
Okay.
Please, that's the one I would second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimously approved. We're moving on to item 17. It is 8:00.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Item 17 is a lease agreement for operation and maintenance of the proposed library cafe. The council issued an RFP in January 2022. In response to the RFP, the town did receive 2 proposals. Staff and the city council subcommittee of Councilmember Lewis and Councilmember Polito reviewed the proposals and after review recommended that the council consider a lease agreement for operation and maintenance of the proposed cafe with Mademoiselle Colette. There were questions and comments related to the provision of alcohol, any necessarily required permitting as a result, as well as indemnification. There was also a question regarding an appropriate termination clause. It would be appropriate for the council to provide some policy feedback on those items, as well as what the council consensus believes is an appropriate termination provision for the lease. Staff will negotiate from that vantage point with any selected vendor with respect to the
Just yell.
the vendor will be required to obtain any necessary permits in the future. There may also be restrictions with respect to go of cafe services on the deck. Staff can articulate the rationale of the recommended subcommittee and staff for the recommended vendor as part of the presentation. As the council is aware, proposals are public documents, but the proposals are available on the town's website and have been provided separately to the council. Staff is available to answer the questions the council may have.
Questions? No. Well, I've got a couple questions. I have two or three. One question is, page 2 of the staff report says, Mademoiselle Colette anticipates initial operating hours being 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Sunday. And then the list of proposed base terms includes operating hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday.
So I'm happy to answer that. And so as indicated in page 2, that's the initial intent. The lease agreement will have some minimum operating hours. And so we just want to guarantee minimum operating hours, but also allow flexibility for really serving the public as best as possible. It is just the concern is that if we listed the initial operating hours as a guaranteed minimum, then there may be an issue if patronage changes at the library or other reasons to shift the hours a little bit.
Okay. Second question, it deals with the alcohol. You said that there may be problems with take and go. I can understand that. And if I heard you right, you said that there may be problems with serving any alcohol on the deck.
I think my concern is if they serve alcohol and the patron using the alcohol is out of the deck, that might be fine. Like I want that patron to take their food and alcohol, come over here at the center or in the city lobby or other stuff.
Okay, and how could that be enforced?
You might see in other venues, they have no alcohol beyond this point.
Okay, okay. And then my final question is, in the economic terms, it was proposed that Mademoiselle Colette for after the first 12 months, pay 4% of the prior month's gross receipts capped at $35,000 a year. Was it considered at all that they pay some portion, maybe that percentage or so, of any catering business that they got as a result of that?
Well, I think we're
cafe?
limiting the rent to the use of the space. It's really hard to capture revenue that is generated outside and used outside. And so if it's not associated with the Civic Center, it really wouldn't be appropriate for us to take any sort of cut. Mademoiselle Colette has other stores. And so it's just, I don't think we can do that.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? in the
No, I
council?
just got comments.
Okay, no, Bob? No questions. Is there any public comment on this matter?
There's a hand raised right here.
Yeah. he has a
Okay.
hand raised.
Matt?
Hi, this is Matt Baker. Sorry I can't be there in person. I'm in Hawaii. It's coffee season right now here. A month ago, we submitted our proposal to the town for our Atherton Cafe RFP. We included an open invite to ask us questions, see the robotic barista, tour our coffee roasting company, tour our coffee lab, but no one responded to our invite. We never got a chance to serve a single cup of coffee to anyone on council. We prepared our proposal around the realities of a 250 square foot space. We created a proposal specific to the space to complement the new county library. Our proposal was forward thinking and using our highly rated specialty coffee and focused on our community, our staff, and a unique 24/7 access to our police department. Our invite remains open to council to try our products and see our facilities. Tonight, you'll be making a decision that will last the next decade and will have a lasting impact on the patrons of the library, our police, and our staff due to the high prices of our competitor. If you don't want to accept our invite to even try our coffee, we ask council to keep the original proposal of a 3-year lease with 3 one-year options, so we or other vendors will have the opportunity in the future to open a great cafe in our town center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Is there any other public comment? Well,
I'd like to make a comment if I could. Astonished that you would get such a good deal. We put this out once, we got nobody to bid. Frankly, I'm again astonished that somebody would take the build expense themselves. And I think it's only fair to go out 5 years if they're going to amortize that. I'm also astonished, frankly, that they would pay the town anything. I think the risk of going in there is very great. We have no idea how many people are going to come here. We've got, a 5-minute drive to the same place in Menlo Park. We have no idea how many people are going to come out of the library and want to do this. So anyway, I would strongly support it as you've got it before you right now, as far as giving people a 5-year lease and a renewal. We've seen this with the tennis court. We know what people have to have when they put in, and this is even worse because they're putting in a very substantial amount of money. So again, I would support it as drafted.
thank you. Is there any other public comment?
I do want to note that we do have Deborah Ferran, the CEO of Mademoiselle Colette, here in the audience.
Hi,
Hello.
didn't know you were here. If you would like to say anything to address the council, you're welcome to.
I hear about a lot of things, especially the alcohol concerns. Honestly, it was not my idea in the beginning, but I have a lot of clients from Menlo Park that come and ask me why they don't sell a glass of wine in this beautiful space with a cheese plate or something like this. It's where the idea of alcohol comes. It's why I contact Robert to add this in the possibility. And I don't know if it's a good idea or not. It was just because many customers that are Atherton residents ask for it. Look, maybe it's something that we don't have anything like this in the city, and maybe can be a place where people can come to meet and join their friends and have a good time together. And it was, I think Mademoiselle Colette will bring a lot of people here to this place. When they opened in Menlo Park in 2015, center, it was so dead and has no energy in the city. And I really believe that very good coffee, very good pastries, and the best viennoiserie will bring a new energy to the city council. And that's why I want to bring the Mademoiselle Colette here.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment, either from anyone in the room or online? I don't see any public comment, so I will close public comment and bring it back to the council. Bill?
Yeah, sure. First off, I thought we had 2 very good proposals. And I know that the subcommittee, which was just 2 council members that were allowed to work on this, as well as staff, I think, had a hard choice to make with regards to that. So I appreciate the work they have. With regards to the wine, I think that I agree with George. George and I did discuss this with regards to not allowing the wine, first off, limiting it to wine and not allowing the wine to leave the patio. and also ensuring that Mademoiselle Colette has the proper licenses and signs the insurance capability. Because when you're serving wine or any alcoholic beverage, then there is a liability. Should somebody drink a lot of it and then get in an accident, that could come back on the supplier. So I think that's an important thing. I'm not in favor of having somebody be able to come and buy wine and then take it off premise. We're not a liquor store. You're not going to be a liquor store here. It's just being an add-on, which I think is probably a good idea. I think, our traditional contracts have 30-day notice for both parties. I think that's specifically inappropriate, I think, for both parties, because Mademoiselle Colette is proposing to do some investment here that they're not going to recoup for a period of time. And as such, and they proposed a 5-year contract. Whether we choose to make it 3 years, I'm like to hear from the other council members, but I think that, whatever we decide, it should be a contract for that term, both for the protection of both parties. And so I think that's one of the other key things I would like to make sure that we just don't use our regular contract that says 30 days. Thank you.
Comments? Bob?
I was blown away by the two proposals. They were both excellent, and I'm in favor of the wine because I think anything that our supplier, the Madame Colette, can do anything we can help her with to make it successful. I think it's a good idea. I agree with Bill's other comments about the wine. I just hope that the things as successful as you think it will be. I'll be here. I'll be here regularly to help.
Elizabeth?
So I have to echo my ad hoc committee members' sentiments about the two proposals. They were very, very excellent. I know that in January, we sent out an RFP and we received no responses. And so Councilmember Polito and I, jumped up and down when we read the RFP that was going out. It was just so bureaucratic, and it was not geared toward enticing a vendor. And so I think Mr. Polito spent his Hawaii vacation on the Zoom with me and staff, and trying to rewrite a proposal that we then ultimately sent out, because we do want to support, we wanted to support whatever vendor is going to go in there to make them, to help them be successful to the extent that we can. And the evaluation of the two proposals was very hard to do, because they were really diametrically opposed to each, not opposed, but in different venues and direction. And I am just so grateful that we had the two to look at, and I wish Vance and Matt all the best in their business that they're starting in Menlo Park, and I'm anxious to come and see that when it's all open. As regarding the wine and the Prosecco, I hope with your morning toast and avocado toast and poached egg is always very good. And so I wish you all the best. And I really believe that you need a 5-year lease to amortize the investment. My profession is in commercial real estate and retail operations, and I own shopping center that I have restaurants in. So I understand the investment, and you do need that 5-year minimum. Some of my vendors want 10 years to go in, but they're like Chipotle, things like that. Anyway, so best of luck, and I'm just excited, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to take both of them. So maybe we can create another venue somewhere else in town to offer coffee for our residents. Thanks.
Other comments?
I guess I'd say I'm all in favor of wine and cheese. I'm sad that we had to pick. I'm somewhat glad that I didn't have to be the one sorting through all that, and make that decision. The things that were lost are, he had a robotic system, which is kind of interesting, and it allowed for people who are working late shifts, or who's in the library after hours, or who's running a, policeman running a shift could get something off the machine. I don't know the price basis of, you mentioned just briefly, what if we could do both? They really are very different. I wish we could at some point consider doing both, where we could have that ability for the other people that are working here at a lower cost. It may not be feasible unless because even the ones that are in the airport are too expensive at this point. But I like the novelty of it. I love the idea of robotics in Silicon Valley, and we're there. But, I love the Madame Colette's. We go there all the time. So it was a hard choice. I'm glad I wasn't on the subcommittee.
Okay. I support the proposal. I think that the proposal, but I agree with what everybody else said about the quality of the proposals. They were both very good, very different. I think the most significant difference to the residents of this town is that Mademoiselle Colette is a known entity. It is an entity that almost everybody in the town at some point or another has had an opportunity to experience. It's a different business. Unfortunately, the business that Matt and Vance hasn't yet had the opportunity to have the presence, but hopefully that will develop with this Menlo Park facility. I do think that I asked the question about the catering because I do think this is a huge opportunity, and I think you will achieve your numbers. I know I will help, but I do believe that will happen. I know a lot of people in this town that are really tired of driving into Menlo Park or Redwood City and would love to be able to come and stay in Atherton to get together with friends over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. I do think that there are people that would prefer to have a glass of beer than a glass of wine. Look, everybody's looking at me because I own a winery, but and it's true. I'm not one of those people, but I know that there are people. So I think that's something that ought to be considered. One change I would like to see is in the base terms. I heard the comment about the hours, and I understand that. I would like there to be a minimum to include Saturday. I actually think Saturday is going to be the most attractive day for the business. So I'm surprised that that's not there. Yes,
I
please.
want to be open 7 days a week. It's what I open 7 days a week in all the other locations. My commercial kitchen turns 7 days. I have a 6,000 square foot in Newark, and we work 7 days a week. Look, my goal is not to open the minimum, it's to open the maximum. It's just that when this discussed with Robert, we need to have a minimum in the lease, but all my locations are open 7 days a week, and my best days are Saturday and Sunday. And I believe here, I'm not sure, because I believe here you'll be, I'm not sure yet. It's why I want to have some opening with the hours, but my goal, if we have a clients to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., it's to stay open the time we need to be open. It's not the minimum. I want to be open the maximum. It's just that we need to put some hours in the lease, but for sure you'll be open 7 days a week.
Great.
Good. Understand the minimum versus maximum.
Fine. Yes.
I would make a motion that we authorize you to proceed with the lease agreement. Okay, the wine and beer option at her discretion, and include Saturday hours 8 to 4, whatever the minimum that you see fit.
I'd like to
I'd
amend,
like to,
I'd like
I'd
to
like to,
amend it
sec-
real
I
quick.
just want to amend that. I don't want to add that Saturday into the lease as a minimum, because I think we want to give her the leeway to add it herself.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll amend my
okay.
motion.
And did you,
I'd like to amend it that the beer and or beer and wine, if we have to go that far, is only served for drinking on premise and only on the patio.
Can I just say something about, I have an alcohol permit for Redwood City in Mellow Park, and it's very strict. To be able to serve alcohol, it's a permit for wine, beer, and sparkling. And we need to serve food with the wine. We cannot serve just wine.
Okay.
It's very strict. The permit's very complicated. It's something that I'm willing to do it, but I'm not sure if you can do it with the small, small space
Yeah.
and what you'll be serving for food. Okay, it's an idea,
Yeah.
it's a wish, but I'm not sure that
I
it
don't
will be
understand why.
possible.
But
Okay?
you have- if
Because
you-
ADA is very.
I understand. We're not saying, I'm not suggesting we require it.
Right.
That
It's
we-
not a condition, it's a
okay with us
possibility.
if It's
Yeah.
okay with you.
And you
But-
can
but I
limit it
don't-
any
I-
way you want.
yeah, I don't understand why we would want to limit it just to the deck.
I think we need to have signs that say you can't take the alcohol beyond the deck.
Okay,
I think we need that.
Yes.
Staff will figure that out.
Hurdles that you may have to go through.
right, right.
We have some as well. We may have a local ordinance we might need to change.
Okay,
So we'll work that out. You're just giving us direction to investigate.
Right.
okay.
Great. Yes,
So,
it's a
okay.
possibility, not a condition.
5 seconds.
So that was my second.
Oh, okay, sorry. You did.
I did.
Okay, I
yes.
thought you just tried to amend it.
No, no.
Okay,
That's my
fine.
second.
I have a
I
motion by
second her
Bob,
second.
a second by Elizabeth.
Oh,
Yes.
George has
George.
What was the direction with respect to
5 years.
5 years.
No, the termination, not 30 days. Do not give her 30 days. No. I think unless it's for cause, I mean, there's language in retail leases that I can get to share with you about,
We're working on we have a working draft lease agreement.
Yeah.
And there's language to be able to terminate for cause if there's a breach of the lease agreement.
Right.
The direction we would like is what about no cause termination, just as the town wants it or Collect wants it.
would that be a mutual termination?
Well, I think that when Mark said he prefers it to be mutual. No party or council
When did he say that?
Well, I'm not opposed to us terminating for cause.
Well, of course not. No, 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 no. Yeah.
The specific direction
But
that we're
you-
looking for is no cause termination.
Yeah,
What is the advance notice that you would want?
Right. for at-will termination.
Correct. So for us to receive and for them to.
I'm not in favor of 30 days like we normally do, especially when they're making an investment and we've gone through a fair amount of staff time to get here. And so I think, these 30-day contracts that
Well, I think we're
a
all in
previous
agreement. of
attorney
that.
has always been pushing, I'd rather see it. She bid a 5-year contract, 5 years. If somebody wants to go with 3, I can go with that, but 5 years I think is
5
appropriate.
years. So I guess what we need to do is, some kind of a mutual termination clause and what would trigger it and what would be the,
No, it's not mutual. It's an at-will termination clause, which is either side could terminate. That's the issue.
well, that's what I meant.
If it's mutual, it's just canceling the contract. That can always happen.
Right.
That's
But
that's
There
what
should
I
be
meant.
consequences
I
of
mean,
termination.
If we're gonna have an at-will clause,
6 months.
180 days.
Yeah, 6 months, I think it would be a minimum.
I think that's
Um,
right.
And then, all the equipment and everything. If it's, from the tenant side, then everything
But
stays the
maybe you can't
same.
terminate, the town can't terminate in the first year.
No.
which
Yeah, you
is-
got to have something like that. If
Right.
I was this young lady, I wouldn't sign an agreement to let me get kicked out in 180 days.
Yeah, I
No
wouldn't
way.
either.
I think the subcommittee are
He's more residential.
both more residential, commercial. We could Work with the subcommittee to work out something.
All right,
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
sure. All right,
Okay,
all right, just not a
So-
30-day thing.
All in favor?
Like,
all in
Aye.
favor of this contract?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimously approved. That's the last item on the agenda for
Oh,
tonight.
Oh, what a surprise.
Okay,
Oh, no. Oh, good,
Like-
okay.
I feel like I'm standing in for my good friend Greg Conlon right at the end of the meeting. I'm coming in.
it's true.
He's not here, so I'm him.
Were you at the Sharon Heights
He's running
tonight?
for insurance commissioner.
Again?
Yes.
Okay. Council, Mr. Roderick. Excellence is a very unique quality, trait, and talent that's unusually rare. Excellence is also greatly exceeded by that is ordinary. Excellence is also an honor and respect. And so from that standpoint, for the work that you all did, and Mr. Roderick, over the last 5 years and beyond, to bring to us this great town hall, specifically the police department for us, on behalf of the police department and our family, thank you for providing us an unbelievable house. I walk 2,000 to 3,000 steps every day now compared to maybe 100 or 200. It's just been phenomenal. I can't tell you the comments from the police department. It's a longstanding tradition that a chief commissions a coin of excellence, which I recently have. And so I would like to bestow that on you on behalf of the police department to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roderick, for what you have done. It was a heavy, heavy lift. Nothing that will soon be forgotten, especially when we are reminded of our old days. So thank you very much.
Oh, good,
Oh,
good.
thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, thanks.
This is not legal
Great.
tender. Mayor?
Well, as far as you know, it's not legal tender.
What an honor. This is so great. I love these things. Yes. Drinks or dinner, you know.
Yeah, where is yours?
Or cappuccinos and one of the little pastries.
Can we invite you guys to bring desserts to our donor dinner?
Anyway, yeah. All right. So the meeting's adjourned?
Meeting's adjourned.
Mayor.
I don't do that little knock.